Hello, everybody. This is the first Facebook Live the Residency Board has had. So welcome to our live. This is the Residency Ordinance and Permit FAQs presentation that we will be giving over this rest of this year for everybody to understand the residency ordinance and what it means to each of you out there. So I'd like to do some introductions today. We have Jessica Respita, who's our chair, myself, Wayahawi Fitch, vice chair, Sandra Rourke is our secretary, Cheyenne Lazore is a board member, but not here today. Diane Cook-Boots is also a board member, but not here today. Jennifer Brown is here with us as an alternate, and Crystal Stalin is also an alternate, but not here today as well. So the residency ordinance was proposed and voted on by St. Regis Mohawk tribal members and adopted by Tribal Council resolution on July 3rd, 2019. The purpose of our residency ordinance is to protect the peace, safety, property, health, and general welfare of tribal members, to preserve our culture, language, and identity as a distinct Mohawk community, to ensure the safety of the Mohawk community and preserve land and housing for the benefit of the SRMT members. This residency ordinance establishes laws for non-members to obtain permits to allow them to reside on Mohawk territory. And the big question is who needs a residency permit? If you're a tribal member or eligible to be a tribal member, you do not need a permit. Eligibility for our membership is decided by the tribal clerk pursuant to our membership code. If you are not a tribal member, you will need to apply for a permit. And who is eligible for a residency permit? A non-member spouse or life partner, provided that they still reside with the tribal member currently. A non-member parent or legal guardian, provided that they reside together as well. A non-member widow or widower, provided that they were a long-term resident of the territory. A member of another tribe, provided they have proof of close community ties. A non-member minor under 18 residing with a member or permitted resident, and a non-member with special needs residing with a member or permitted resident. Another question people have are what types of residency permits are there? There are generally 3 types: grandfather resident, regular resident, and tenant permit. So we as the board make that decision. You don't self-claim who you are. We will look through your records to decide what permit to give you. So the grandfather resident is for non-members who are long-term residents, which means you have been living on the Akwesasne territory on or before July 3rd, 2014. You must submit proof of that to the residency board. No, this permit has no term and does not ever need to be renewed. And then you have a regular resident permit. These are for non-members who do not qualify for the grandfather permit, which means you did not live on the Akwesasne territory prior to July 3rd, 2014. This is a permit that will be a term of 5 years and must be renewed every 5 years. You will not need to renew once you've done this 4 consecutive times. Lastly, the tenant permit. These are for non-members who seek to reside in rental properties in the Akwesasne territory. The associated costs for applying is a $50 non-refundable application fee. This is purely administrative and you will not get any of that money back. The next cost would be the $65 US background check, but this fee would be waived for applicants over the age of 68 or if you are a grandfather applicant, excuse me. Also about these payments, no cash or checks are to be accepted with the application once you turn that in. The payment for the application and background check must be paid directly to the SRMT Finance Office accounts receivable window, which is on the 2nd floor of Yugwa Gyokwalolu. And our hours for that office are Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. That paid receipt that you receive should be submitted with your application. Documents that will be required for for the residency permit are the application itself, which is consists of a bunch of pages that we will go through in our presentation shortly. You will need a copy of a government issue ID, birth certificates of tribal member children, marriage certificates if you are married to a tribal member or a widow or widower of a tribal member, your lease agreement for the tenant application if you're a tenant applicant. And these documents should be copies and will be submitted with your application. Please note that official documents submitted with an application must usually be notarized. However, this requirement is being waived while we're in the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm going to turn it over to Sandy, who's going to go through the residency permit application.
Hi everyone, I'm just going to go through the application for you quick. The application can be found on the tribe's website under our residency board section. So the first couple pages are just, the cover page and the introduction, gives you some contact information and some instructions on how to submit your application, and gives you some of the background info on how we just went over as far as fees and whatnot. And then you get into the applicant personal information, which is just, very generic, your name, date of birth. You go into your marital status and spouse or life partner information. And that's where you're going to put tribal enrollment numbers and their contact information. Then you're going to go to members of your household. So you're going to need to include yourself and then everyone that lives in your household and any applicable tribal ID numbers. And the history of residence. Again, this is pretty straightforward. You're going to put where you lived, and this is the information that we use to determine what type of permit you'd be eligible for. So either grandfather or regular permit or a tenant permit. Then you're going to need to list your community ties. And we also need 3 character references and their contact information. And then there's a place for your employment, current and previous employment, and your criminal history, any charges that you may have gotten in the past there. Then this page is just waivers. It's basically where you're declaring everything's true, the best of your knowledge. And this is just telling you what you need to attach to it. And there's additional space there if you need more space to write notes. And then you get into what Howie was talking about before. We need to do background checks. So of course, there is authorization and consent forms that we need filled out by the applicant so that we can do these background checks. So, it might seem a little redundant, but there is, these are required separately on where we send these in to get the authorization. And they're pretty straightforward. It's basically your signature and it's your authorization for us to conduct the backgrounds. And I think these are just general, information for you regarding the backgrounds. I think that's pretty much. And there's the one for the tribal police department. They also need a release so that they can conduct their check.
Thank you, Sandy. We're handing it over to Jennifer, who's going to tell you about what happens next in the application process.
Hi, once we have everything that we need to move forward, once it's received and confirmed, we have 60 days to inform you of the decision. There'll be a notification of hearing and interview, a public notice for 2 weeks, and that'll give the community an opportunity to comment if they have any concerns about the applicant. The applicant's going to be notified of any comments and given a chance to respond. If you are denied, you have the right to appeal to the San Francisco Mohawk Tribal Court in writing. You need to include the board's letter of denial, which will state the reason that you were denied. The tribal court's decision is final, and there is a filing fee of $50 that you must pay to the tribal court. You'll be required to leave the territory in 30 days of your written notice after your final appeal. The 30-day time period may be extended for good cause, but only for an additional 7 days. Any applicant that remains on the territory beyond the time period ordered to leave, they may be charged by the tribal police and the Franklin County Sheriff with trespassing. Any final orders, decisions, and or other determinations that are issued by the Residency Board or by the tribal court shall be enforced by the St. Regis Tribal Police and the Franklin County Sheriff. The board also has the right to revoke permits. A tribal member may file a request to the board seeking revocation of a residency permit. The request must be in writing and state specific reasons why the permit should be revoked, and the board has the authority to revoke that permit. The grounds for the permit, for the revocation, the board has the right to revoke for any person who presents a substantial and immediate threat to safety and welfare of the tribe as a whole to any member or to any other person within the territory, has caused or threatens to cause destruction, injury, or other impairment to real or personal property, whether held by the tribe or individual, whose actions interfere with the administration, operation, and process of tribal government, has committed a criminal offense classified as a felony or equivalent in violation of federal, state, tribal, or provincial law, has engaged in the intentional harmful conduct in violation of federal, state, tribal, or provincial law. Important dates: applications will be accepted beginning January 4th, 2021. There is a deadline for the permit application process that is December 31st of 2021 for current Akwesasne residents. We will continue to accept applications for new applicants on a rolling basis. Currently, we have 27 applications to date. 12 are currently in progress. 15 have been approved grandfather permits, and 1 application from an individual who lives in the land claim area. While this is not a requirement, we will continue to accept applications within the land claim area. If you want to contact the Residency Board, you can reach us by phone at 518-358-2272, extension 2167, or you can send an email to residency.board@srmt-nsn.gov. Kathy Mitchell is our board liaison and will either be able to answer your questions or she will appoint a board member to give you a call back for more conversation information.
Hi, I'm Jessica, and I'm just going to walk through some of the questions we've received so far. So first, what forms will the non-member need to show how long they have resided here? And we'll accept any official document that demonstrates residency, such as bills, car loans, bank statements, etc. And what we're looking for is your name, your address, and a date that establishes residency prior to July 3rd, 2014. Since in the ordinance, you are eligible for a grandfather permit if you've resided in the territory for 5 years prior to the date that the ordinance was adopted. The next question is the application for new persons seeking residency, or will it need to be filled up by everyone who is not a tribal member? Because this person didn't see anything about grandfathering. So the answer is both. It's both for people who plan to reside in Akwesasne and also anyone who currently is a non-member that lives in Akwesasne. There is a grandfather permit. We just didn't reference it within the application, as has been mentioned, because we are going to determine who qualifies based on the information provided. The next question. If I only have MCA membership, do I need to apply for a residency permit to live on the southern portion? So if you're eligible to be a member of the St. Regis Mohawk tribe, you do not need to apply for a permit. So if you are a member of MCA, then you also meet the criteria to live within Akwesasne on the southern portion. The only exception is that if you were to change your status from one band to another band that's not the Mohawk of Akwesasne, then you will need to apply for a permit. If a non-native applies and they are not good moral character, how do I make the rest of the community aware? So we post a list of our applicants that are being considered for permits in the Indian Time newspaper and on the tribe's website and Facebook page. So if anyone has a concern about someone who has applied, this is their opportunity to submit comments to the board that we can consider. And if any comments are received, we will hold a formal hearing to address those concerns. Will non-members be interviewed by the board? So any applicant can be interviewed through either an informal or a formal process for us to gain further information or to address any comments that were received, but not all applicants will need to be interviewed. When does the board meet to determine approval of an application, and how often will we meet? So the board meets on the third Tuesday of every month, but we will reassess this based on the number of applications we receive. If I apply, will I be able to receive my decision letter by email as well? Yes, we will both mail a letter, and also we will email a letter if an email address is provided within the application, but we're not going to reach out to request an email address. Can I pay over the phone for the application fee? What if I have cash, and can I go to the tribe? So as was mentioned earlier, we're not able to accept payment, but payment can be made over the phone or in person to the finance office. They're open from Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. And as was already mentioned, you would attach the receipt for payment to your application. Do my spouse's kids need to apply? And if so, at what age? So minors under the age of 18 are covered under their non-parents permit or through their member parent. But once they're over the age of 18, they will need to apply for their own permit. If I am a grandfather applicant, will I still need 3 references? Yes, everyone needs to have references because that is what was outlined in the ordinance. Why do we ask for a social security number? And we do that because it's required for background checks. For the character references, what is considered a family member? So for that, it would be anyone who you would have a conflict of interest with. So it would be members of your immediate family, members of your household, relatives, in-laws. So we're just trying to avoid conflicts of interest. Are common law marriages recognized under the residency ordinance? The common law marriages are not recognized in New York State nor under tribal law, but we do take common law marriages into consideration when determining residency. And these can be proven showing shared bank accounts, shared loans, acknowledgements of paternity, etc. And the reason it's beneficial to establish a common law marriage is because an application based on a member spouse doesn't expire as it would when you are a parent or guardian, because those expire after the children turn 18. Why doesn't the residency board interview applicants, and why are they being given permits based on an application? So as we stated before, interviews are not required under the ordinance, but we do hold either formal or informal interviews when there's a concern raised, when we need additional information or any questions from the applicant. And what happens if you know someone who is not good for the community and they live here and refuse to get a permit? So as of right now, we have open enrollment or not open enrollment, but an open application period for all current residents of Akwesasne to get their permit with this calendar year. And after the end of this calendar year, we will start enforcement of non-permitted residents. Does the ordinance require all background checks and police forms? People are duplicating information on the entire application. Yeah, we acknowledge that there is some redundancy in the application, but that is done because we need explicit consent from you before we can run a background check with each agency. If a non-native applies and they are not of good moral character, how do I make the rest of the community aware? I think we already answered this question, but just to reiterate, each applicant is subject to a public comment period and their name is made public through the tribe's Facebook page and website, and also in the Indian Time newspaper. So there is an opportunity for comments. And have we, oh, sorry.
Yawa Jessica and Yawa Jennifer and Sandy. So we are Facebook Live. We're accepting any questions that anyone might have right now. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. And I do not see any questions in our chat right now. All right.
Okay, and they can always email in questions later. We'd be happy to answer at any time.
And this presentation is available on our SRMT website. We do have our own oversight. We're one of the oversight bodies on the website. So if you just click on SRMT nsn.gov, you can find us there. So we will see you again soon. I'm hoping, and hoping we'll get some more applications rolling in. This is one of 2 meetings that we've had with the public. We've presented at 2 tribal meetings. We've been working together for about 1.5 years, and we're learning with you guys. So again, if you have questions, you can reach us at the phone numbers provided in this presentation. And of course, find us on our SRMT website. All right, thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.